5 weeks to go.
Yeah. Well, it's been a depressing couple of days, mate, having to leave the beautiful state of WA.
No.
Had a great time, and having to go back to reality is not exactly what I wanted, but that's fine. And hang on, I got my computer audio blaring through my other speakers. So there we go. But yeah, Tim, you're saying you were planning for all of your weekend stuff. What are you sort of thinking? Because obviously trades are a little bit tricky now with most people having rookies off field and stuff. So what are your early thoughts ahead of this week?
In actual fact, Bales, I wouldn't mind you going through yours first, because I got a bit to go through, because I want to kind of take people through, I guess, my thinking about what I'm looking at doing this week, just because I think, there's a few different spots, I guess, that I'm going to be talking about, and a few major issues this week. Well, I don't know, not major issues, but there's certainly a couple of ways where people could go different this week, right? So, there's kind of a lot at stake. Only 5 weeks to go. And I just wanted to walk people through my thinking, just in case it gives anyone, a new perspective or something they didn't think about, or, something along those lines in the lead up to the round.
Yeah. So we'll get the guys' trades that doesn't matter.
No, that's not what I mean. I'm going to dribble shit for a while, so I thought I'd get yours done first.
Yeah, no, I'm only bucking around. Mine are pretty straightforward this week. I'm just going on the bench. I'll just be going a Dev Rob down to one of Banks or Nankervis. I'm thinking Nankervis at this point just to save the 30K, just to get as much cash as possible in case I need that for next week. And then I'm just going a Ben Keys up to Josh Dunkley. I think that Ben Keys for me is a priority trade out, especially after looking at the Crows, where they brought in Harry Schomburg and Matt Crouch last week with Rory Laird being out, and both held their spot with Rory Laird coming back in. But not only that, the fact that Rankin's also out with Rochelle being suspended for his second week this week, Keys is going to be playing, I think, forward this week. So he's going to put up potentially, he could put up a good score. That's Keys' the sort of play you trade it. You could put a good score on your head, but I also think that there's more chance of him going a sub 70 and putting up a bad score. So I thought, get rid of him, bring in Dunkley. I've got Doherty, I've got Sicily, I've got some of the big targets people are looking at this week. So Dunkley's the obvious one I don't have, and we'll talk about VCs and Cs later, but I dare say he'll be featuring in one of those for me. So pretty straightforward. But yeah, so what are you looking at doing? So you said there's a little bit to play out here. So what have you got?
Yeah, so let's talk about this ruck situation first, right? Marshall and Gawn, right? So I think now what we've seen is, I think there's enough news that Marshall, trained well this week. There's not, no second ruck trained. Tom Campbell is an emergency, but he's been an emergency for a long time. We do know that Marshall is susceptible to potentially being subbed. That happened once, and that was when they were down by 90 points. So, I do think this game is going to be relatively close. So, I think the chances of Rowan Marshall being subbed or rested pretty much have almost dissipated. And at the same time, if we look across, to Gawn, Brodie Grundy has been named as the first emergency. And then also, I do think that they want to run with Gawn in the finals, but next week they're up against North, who also play Cherry and Goldstein. So, it would make a lot of sense for them to bring Grundy back next week to kind of give Max a bit more of a chop out, a bit more of a rest. There's not much to worry about in that game. So, just kind of get him rested up for finals. So, I actually think getting off Romar and getting into Gawn is too much of a risk now. That coaches can't do that. And I know that there'll be coaches that, I know I'm really disappointed that I can't do it, because for me it seemed to be the perfect opportunity to go away from the crowd without too much risk and try and climb rank. But I think I really don't think that. Well, I'm not considering that as an option at all. However, I do think, and I think this is something you might even want to consider, Bales, as well. I do think bringing in Dante Vicentini, I think that's a very smart move if you can, and get him to the ruck spot. I mean, he might not offer much.
That's I actually like that point. So, in a case where you want that emergency, would you be bringing a guy like Vicentini onto the bench in your ruck line? And with Cooper Harvey being out, the only emergency I would have that's playing on my bench is Kyle Lohman. So I wouldn't actually have a midfield emergency. So would you bring in a Vicentini and just sort of just bank on the fact your midfielder's going to play and you can just maybe change your trades, like maybe keep a Keys and trade a midfielder instead? Or would you go and just get Vicentini to get that spot? Because I guess it's probably easy to fix a midfield spot because you'll have maybe edit trades, whereas rucks is going to be hard because you'll be locked into trades.
Sure. Look, I think under that circumstance, I think it's a bit more of a 50-50 call then because, I mean, look, I'm not really worried about any of my midfielders being out. So I'm not really worried about a mid-bench. But, you know, I am worried potentially.
About
It's only a
Marshall.
small worry about Marshall. But for me, I've got someone on my mid-bench, so it's not a consideration for me. So to be perfectly honest, I hadn't thought of that, mate. But
well, actually, hang on. Actually, the only way I could do that is by not looping Windhager and Darcy Cameron, just playing Darcy Cameron straight on foot, putting Windhager in my midfield bench. Would you just do that instead?
Let's get to this point.
Yeah.
So I wonder whether. So I think sometimes we have to, really kind of, Rids. I saw Rids on before. He's he always talks about groupthink and how we can get stuck into it. And I think this is an area where we could potentially be getting stuck, right? I think it's just too easy and obvious for us to go, oh yeah, like a Darcy Cameron or a Ben Keys, let's loop them with a Marcus Windhager. It's kind of safe and secure. But I think now that the Roma Gorn option has kind of disappeared, I think this is now a play, right? So, I mean, for me, Darcy Cameron's up against Mark Pitnet. That's not a good matchup anymore. He might only score, he could score bloody 70 to 85, right? Like, I mean, if I get a 90 out of him, I'm probably going to be stoked. But, I mean, what do we expect out of Marcus Windhager? I really think that role that he's been playing, as particularly the matchup that he's got, also being at Marvel, I think you're better off. I mean, it is riskier than running the loop with Darcy Cameron, but I reckon this is where you take your risk, right? And you go, I'm going to trade out of a Darcy Cameron into, I don't know, cheap ruck option. You might only be able to get, play a Windhager at F6. It's a little bit of a risk, but that he could actually go much better than a Ben Keys or a Jack McRae or maybe even a Sam Flanders there. Someone along those lines. And then it isn't going to necessarily give you a leg up this week, but what it's going to leave you, because then you could upgrade another player to a Dunks or a Sicily or a Doherty. I think they're probably, or a Steele or an LDU. I think they're 5 great trading options. But it's also then going to leave you $300,000 to $400,000 for next week. And then what you will be able to do is, because one of the things I'm frustrated about this week is I can't get off 2 players, right, and upgrade 2 premiums. I would love to be able to jump off a Brad Crouch and, I've got a Took. I've also got a Gavin Wanganeen with it, like a bloody tag risk at the back there. So, if you've then got 300 or 400K next week, you then might be able to do a double, almost like a double upgrade, like a Windhager up to someone that's mixing it with the midfielders, because you move a Dunkley down into the forward lines, right? But, we've got some value options in the mids there. And then you maybe do another upgrade as well. So I think that's a play. Now, I actually don't think I'm not sure that I'm going to do it, because I don't know that it's going to give me enough to do what I want next week, but I think it's something that coaches could do. So that then gets me to the third thing, which is sick dog. Now, there's been a lot of talk about sick dog being tagged, and maybe he gets tagged, but Saints haven't tagged, and maybe he goes off. And I think a lot of people are being scared off him this week. So I think there's also another play for coaches here that maybe have a sick dog and an LDU, where you could put the VC on a sick dog on a Sunday first game and then roll it into an LDU. I mean, we've kind of looked around. I've looked at all the captain predictors this week, and, there's not really many ceiling options when it comes to captains this week. So, I think that makes LDU a little bit safer as a backup. in terms of being able to get to a 110, 115, 120 against the Eagles. I think that's relatively safe, but I think it then also gives you a shot at a sick dog pulling a 160 and putting a VC on him because that could potentially get you 40, 50 points right there in terms of a play on that. And look, it's risky. It could burn your season. Once again, for me, I'm actually not going to do that because I've got Gavin and I'm worried about the tag risk on Gavin, so I don't want to trade in another tag risk because if I get hit with 2 tag risks, I think that will, I am balancing a little bit, my overall rank with, trying to take out the Content Creators Cup as well. Like, I think that would be a really nice, feather in my cap, I guess. But yeah, so I guess, but those are 2 plays that I think are genuine plays that coaches who want to try and climb rank, or, maybe you are in your first week of finals this week and, you're in the elimination finals, and your projected score is lower than the other teams and you want to have a bit of a shot, maybe these are a couple of plays that people could be thinking about because, yeah, like I said, I think the Romar and Gawn play is now, I think you've got to put a line through it.
Yeah. Well, I think coach will still look at doing it just as like a bit of a point of difference to see, what if like Ryan Marshall laid out? But yeah, I was looking at it and I was sort of almost hoping if Campbell got named, that would make my decision for me, or if Marshall's accent, it would just make, I'll just do that trade. But with that out, I'm probably not looking at that now. But yeah, obviously the only thing I've just got to contemplate, is the looping Darcy Cameron on my bench with Windhager. And not having not having either a ruck emergency or a midfield emergency, or playing Darcy Cameron on field, getting Vicentini into cover in the ruck, and then having Windhager covering in the midfield, and could even loop a Mills and a Windhager. That's probably what I've got to. That's probably a decision I've got to decide. So
wouldn't you want to keep Windhager in the forward to loop him? Forget the cover.
Yeah, that's what I mean. What I'm doing, because Cameron's tonight, my original plan was just go Darcy Cameron emergency. If he goes well, then just put Drury on field and can put Windhager in. So
I get what you mean. Yeah. Sorry.
And I think I'll probably do that as well. And I guess if Windhager does go in my mids, I can then get if Cameron goes well, put Drury on field. I can then put Windhager in my mids, and then I can probably go and get Vicentini to have that cover just in case I need that for the ruck bench. So, but yeah, so what exactly are your trades? What are the trades you're looking at doing? Because I know that you had a bit of a decision between Gavin and Took out.
Yeah, so after all that, it's actually relatively vanilla for me. Like, I'm going Dev Rob down to a Dante Vicentini, which gets me enough money to go Took Miller up to Dunkley. I guess my unique move is, rather than trading someone in unique, my unique move is actually holding Nasai Wanganeen Malira with that potential tag risk. And I mean, the reason why I'm doing it is, because he might not get tagged. Obviously, he's been scoring very well. He's unique and he plays his next 4 games at Marvel. So, that's kind of that's going to stay my unique play, I guess, for the time being.
Yeah, because I saw you ask that on the Ball Boys stream before. Which, if people don't tune into Mitch and Luke on a Friday afternoon and you aren't doing anything, just make sure you tune in, because it's sort of great fun. Love it every Friday afternoon, sitting down watching the boys. But I know you were asking there, and I was actually thinking I'd probably trade Gavin first over Took, but that's just obviously my opinion. I'm not ranked very highly, so you don't have to listen to me. But Took's got like Gold Coast and Adelaide is next 2. I know Adelaide's a tough matchup, but I still think
they're all tough matchups.
Well.
They're all tough matchups. He's kind of been moved out of that. Yeah. If you look at all the DFS, they're all negative matchups. I mean, it's not even just that. It's also the role, right? Like, they kind of came out 2 weeks ago and said that, he's still a big part of our midfield. And then last week they came out and said, actually, in fact, he can kind of play all over the place, because we're trying some other things out in that midfield. So I really don't think that he's got the role. And if he hasn't got that role, then, and I'm kind of, I guess my thought about it is like this is, take out the tag risk. To me, who is the better player? Who would I rather have? And I would rather have Nazai Wanganeen Manila over Took Miller with the role. I don't think he's going to be that 105, 110 mid with the new coach.
Yeah.
So and I know. Look, and then because the other thing is, then next week, if I don't do that trade, I mean, I'll be happy still having Gavin next week, but I won't be happy if I've still got Took. So that's also my thinking as well. Look at, might blow up in my face. Maybe he gets tagged to a 40, right? But, just got to I really think they're going to want to go to Sinclair. And I'm also wondering...
sorry, you go.
With Zach Jones, with Jack Steele now kind of playing well, I'm actually wondering whether Sinclair does go more back to that defensive role.
The only thing I was saying, if he's getting tagged, I do see him like moving back into the mids. So that's the only reason that I would think that Gavin gets tagged, because I think that they would just put Finn McGuinness next to Wanganeen Miller, and they know they can stop him. Whereas Sinclair, it's going to be a bit harder because he can go in midfield and whatever. But hey, who's to say Finn McGuinness won't play on a wing and go inside once the ball's bounced and tag Sinclair around the ground? So that could easily happen as well.
I mean, who would you want to tag? Would you really want to tag? GVM over GWM over.
Well,
bloody...
I would only tag Gavin. I would only tag Wanganeen Miller because it's probably just easier to tag him, because he's just going to play on a wing or on a halfback flank. He's not going to go inside, whereas at least Sinclair could. But I did hear them say on the game last week, the North St Kilda game, that Sinclair was second in the AFL behind Dacos for effective kicks. So the coach are going to look at that and think, well, we need to stop Sinclair because he's the guy that's delivering the ball to the forwards against us, and if we stop him, then we can stop good delivery. So it's a tough one. It's 50-50, but then again, we'll have to see what happens. But
none of these things come without risk, right?
Exactly right. So it's it's one, if you, it's like what's the saying? It's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Like you go one way, it will work, and the other way will fail. It like you might go one way and it will fail. It's just 50-50. So
well explained, mate. Well explained.
Yeah, mate. There you go. But let's get into a bit of the VC and captain picks. This is a pretty tough week, I think, for a lot of captains and VCs. I'll first probably go with who I would have in my own top five. I'm not putting my hat in the ring as captain picker. I'm just saying my top five picks, and my number one and number two are who my VC and my C will be. I think Dunkley's the best option out of everyone this week for VC or C, which Mitch has got him number one, the Ball Boys, and hopefully bring him in for 150 on debut. That was my spicy take on their stream. He'd be my number one. Taranto would be my number two against Melbourne. I think he would go well there. I think three, I would have someone like a Bont, just for the security and just how safe that he normally is. Also, don't mind a Dacos VC tonight. I don't think, because with Turnover not being there, I think he won't be tagged. So I think he'll go well. And also, like a Sicily, not as much as if Blank was there, but I'd like Sicily to still go well. And also, Jack Steele is the other one with LDU. They're probably the two other midfielders that I like as captains on the final one. So I'm going Dunkley VC into Taranto captain. What are you looking at doing, Tim?
Yeah, I was actually looking at doing the exact same thing. I think Dunks is a great VC option, and I also wonder if he might be a little bit unique. Just not everyone's going to be able to get to him this week or last week, so I think he's a good VC option. I know that a number of captain pickers who are much better at picking captains than me have picked Bont, but I really don't like Ballarat.
That's the reason I'm staying away from him as well. The funny thing's happening in Ballarat, I'm staying, like Tim English as well. People have said that Giants not a bad matchup for ruck, so I'm staying clear of that whole game.
Look, it's fine for a VC, right? Because obviously you can roll it into a C. But I think Dacos tonight is also a good option. Sick Dog, I think, is also a good option for the VC, and then probably the only other person. Steele or Steele, and I still like an LDU.
Yeah, and as you said, that player VCing guy like a Sicily into an LDU could be a good unique play if you're looking to make up some ground, because they're both capable of getting a 140 for you. So But yeah, it is a tough week. I would probably go a Dacos VC tonight, but I have tended to stay away from the Friday VCs, but just because that's where, as we said, that's where the majority of people go. So if you can get like last week,
and Carlton's a bit of a tough matchup, and even though Kerno's not in the side, I mean, you'd think they're not gonna just let him run free and do his thing. I think they're gonna want to put some attention into him. But
Carlton aren't really an easy matchup. I think they're quite hard, especially for midfielders.
Well, it depends. It depends. That wing, they're not too bad, but which I mean, he's not really a wing player, but he is a bit more of an outside player. But I don't know. Yeah, but look, it's certainly a valid option.
Yeah, the only time I think I go for a Thursday or Friday night VC is if there's like an obvious one, like when Marshall was up against a Ruckless Port Adelaide when he got the 150, or if someone was up against an easy matchup. But it's not an easy one tonight, so that's why I'm going clean. Plus, as you said, not everyone's going to be able to get Dunkley. Having him as a VC, and if he goes big, that could be a real sort of winner there. So
exactly, we got Mitch out there, we got Rids out there. If the boys want to jump on, I'd love to hear what you boys are doing this week.
Yep, I think
by the way, just Jeppa just jumped on as well. I did want to say, listen to the coaches panel this morning with Matty Mottram and Rids and MJ, and it was a ripper podcast. Hey, especially hearing from Matty Mottram and kind of his insights. So yeah, and he was, I got really inspired actually, particularly about how he was talking about. We tend to have a lot of focus on going unique, but it really is about timing. And I do think we are at that stage of the season where coaches, you don't want to go too early, right? You can go way, way early because you've got time to make it back up, but there's a kind of a critical part there where you don't want to go too unique because it could really hurt you. But these last few weeks is where you really can. So yeah. Shout out to Rids and obviously Matty Mottram, who was on the pod. But go and check it out.
Yep, no, definitely. Always love listening to Coach Panel, the great podcasts out there. And we got two gentlemen that have jumped on with us that are members of the Plus Six Pod and the Ball Boys Fantasy Podcast, respectively. So, Jet, mate, how are you? Oh, he's on mute. Oh, we'll go to Mitch. Mitch, mate, how are you?
Mate, hang on. Before we introduce Mitch, I want to introduce Mitch, right? The second best fantasy football coach podcast in Australia.
Hey. Hold on a second. 1 week ago, it was a different story. So it'll be a different story in about 5 weeks' time. So,
mate, look, second is very honourable, mate. Honourable. I'm joking. Staring up.
I was just, playing possum a little bit, and I'll get you in the real thing when we come to each other in the final.
Yeah.
Mate,
great show before, by the way. Great show before.
Oh, thank you. I do just want to say off the top here, just full transparency. You probably guys haven't seen it as you've been on here hosting, but there's been a late update to the big boys.
Ooh, let us know.
Yeah, a late update. There's been a bit of a shuffling. There's been some sourcing from the community out there, and I was given footage of Josh Dunkley on his podcast this week. And some concerning comments saying that he's still technically rehabbing and looking after that calf, and he reckons that calves usually last 3 to 4 weeks. And whilst I'm not going to jump at shadows completely, and I'm still probably going to trade him in myself, it was enough for me to ding him down a little bit. So he's moved down to 5 on my on the big boys, which means that Tim Taranto is now my number 1. So I know, Bales, you were considering him as your VC. Look, it could still pay off, and he definitely scored better in the second half last week, which I think someone else also pointed out that he said he was working his way into the game. But I don't know, I'm nervous with those kind of things, and it doesn't take much for me to, jump down.
Do you think they would have done? Because they didn't really bring anyone in though to replace Ashcroft in that midfield. So I'm just how worried could they be about it?
No, I don't think they'd be worried. I think he's still going to play. It's more just the fact that, when you're talking captains, you're splitting hairs, and it's like, okay, they're versing the Gold Coast Suns. If they're smashing them, does he sort of just take the foot off the gas a little bit? Is there a sub risk potentially? Last week was a close game against the Geelong, so you probably didn't have that opportunity.
Getting to the pointy end of the season, maybe you're getting worried about your captain reputation.
Oh, I don't know, mate. I don't know. I'm nervous. The footage didn't seem good, and look, I'm happy just to sort of, if you still want to go with the VC option, I think that's still fine. But yeah, look, he's still in my top 5. Let's put it that way. He's still in my top 5. I've just dinged him a couple of spots. So just full transparency, so everyone's up to date.
I don't like the dinging. I don't like the dinging of my trade-in target. Bloody hell! I sold on him as VC. Now I'm going to go.
Sorry, well,
on that, right? Because you were talking top 3. Was it you saying the top 3 trading targets were they Dunk, Sick, and Doc?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So has that changed that order at all?
No. So then this was part of my other thinking as well. So because Sicily featured in the big boys, so I've still got Dunkley ahead of Sicily in terms of the big boys, and I think that would carry over to trading targets because the way I see it, Sicily's got 2 flags. Flag number 1, potential tag target. Flag number 2, no blank. Now he has the positive matchup against St Kilda. But, if he's forced to lock down a little bit more like we saw him last week, how positive is that actually? Whereas Josh Dunkley's got like this little half flag. So I'd probably still go there as a trade-in target. But as a captain, I'm just a little bit more gun-shy.
The good thing is with Saints is that they don't have a real tall forward line. You got Caminiti there. He's the main one, and then like Owens could be the guy that maybe if there's a potential tag goes to Sicily. But if Sicily doesn't get tagged, the good thing is there might not have to be as much of a lockdown because they've got a fairly small forward line. But agreed, I wouldn't have him in the top couple. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So I think it's close, and if you wanted to, I mean, the tough thing is though, like Dunkley will still probably be more unique because a lot of the teams in the top traded in Sicily a couple of weeks ago. So just by the nature of where they're owned right now, Dunkley will still be the more unique option. So in your position there, Tim, I still think Dunkley's the play, but
yeah, I think I'm going to go that way anyway.
It's definitely a tough call. I guess it also depends on who you're trading out as well.
Well, just a quick question on captains as well, Mitch. I just want to ask you, as Tim was saying before about the play of going maybe a Sicily or even you could even do a Jack Steele who's in form against the Hawks. So going them VC into an LDU. What are your thoughts on that?
I like LDU. So he's moved up to number 3 this week. I would love him to be a VC option. Just by the nature of his ceiling that he's shown. But if you're not sold on Bont, which I can definitely see the flags there with the Ballarat thing, and we just see some weird games, then LDU would be a great option. The shitty thing is that he plays 440 when my number 1 Timmy T plays at 320. So I like to roll into my number 1 or the highest guy. So.
But that's where I think you could have a shot at a sick dog, like a sick dog or a Jack Steele. It's a hit and hope anyway.
I think that's definitely a play. It's 2 kind of long shot options, but again, unique. One of them you'd think, hits. So, I think that's definitely a potential play. I've got him pretty high there.
Because the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, well, just get Dunkley in, be happy I've got him in, maybe go Steele VC into Taranto and see 3/4 of what if Steele's on a 90. I've done that before. Steele's on a 90. I did that with Laird against Hawthorn at UTAS. He was on like 100 at 3/4 time, and I'm just like, I'm taking that. And he got a 120 or something.
When the ball boys questioning your captain credentials earlier, mate. I'm not sure you're doing much to defend
I'll clear this up. I was questioning Bales as well.
That's true.
No, not many credentials, Bales, but just your rotten luck this year.
Mate, I've had a tough year. But that's all right, mate.
It'll change. It'll turn at some point.
Yeah, next year I'll be winning the highlights.
2024.
But let's get into. There's a few questions from the listeners here. So if you guys are tuning in on YouTube or Twitter, put the questions in live chat on YouTube or the comments on Twitter, and we'll get to these questions as well. And also, if you're in the Perth area, which I'm depressed that I'm not anymore, but if you are, make sure you head down to Varsity at Northbridge with Tim and and Cara
us
and
fantasy
usual
losers
gang there. Yep.
And look, I did think, I know you guys probably obviously listened to the podcast that Cara's on this week, Hat Chat. So she made a really good point, which is probably something I haven't actually brought up. And that is that a lot of people do actually come down on their own. Like they come down on their own, feeling like, oh my God, I'm a bloody loser and I don't know anyone, walking in, oh my God, and then, within, 2 minutes of seeing our bloody big table of idiots, and going, oh, hi, how you going? And, then we ask you your trades and, within 5 minutes, it's all, good fun and, chatting away and having beers and burgers and all that kind of stuff. So, even if you are on your own, I mean, that's kind of why it kind of got created. So, don't let that be the barrier for coming down.
Nothing brings people together more than talking fantasy and beers. So
that's right.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so make sure you get down to Varsity if you're in Perth. But let's get stuck into some questions. So the first one, so Anthony just had a comment here on you. He said, "Hope the Bales curse doesn't strike Dunkley this week." Well, I think I've got to curse my own team, not for everyone. But let's hope not. But yeah, Rodney says Dunkley or Sicily, can't decide. So Mitch, you're still going Dunkley over Sicily?
I'm still going Dunkley over Sicily. I think the blank omission is the separator for me. So
I'd agree.
yeah, when it's again splitting hairs, you've got to kind of lean on something. That's for me the tiebreaker. But if you had like a clear player in your defensive line that you were like, nah, got to get rid of this guy, and your forward line's looking okay, then that would be a better tiebreaker for me. But yeah.
And James got a double question, so I'll go one for Mitch because we talked about the ruck trade. So I'll go to Mitch for that one, then I'll go for the other one for Tim. But James says, thoughts on the Marshall to Gawn trade? I know that you were speaking before about that you looked a little bit at that. Is that still in your thinking, or what do you think?
It's definitely a play. I mean, if you told me like Marshall's healthy, Gawn's healthy, they're both playing sole rucks, and Gawn outscores Marshall for the rest of the year, I'd 100% believe you. Like it's definitely something that could happen if both are healthy. The fact that Marshall's been under a bit of an injury cloud, means that there's more upside by getting off him. But I still think that, I mean, I don't know. Coaches do funny things and in press conferences say things in a way that read different in quotes than what they sound in the actual press conference. And I feel like, I don't know, them coming out and saying that post is kind of a bit of, I don't know, they're being funny with us. So I feel...
When do we know Ross, to be straight up? Like he kind of got a bit of kudos this week for being transparent with us, but we don't know that he was transparent.
Exactly, yeah. Like,
and apart from what got said there, there's actually nothing else to show us that he's a risk.
Yeah, he played 90% game time. Like they weren't managing him throughout the game. So look, the only thing that we can maybe fall back on is the fact that he did get subbed, but that was round 8. So that was a fair while ago. So look, I feel confident
beaten by 90 points.
Yeah, I feel confident he plays at least this week. So take that for what you will. But there is still an element of risk there. If you can still get your upgrade, then if it's not preventing you from doing any other move, then I still think it's a good play to make because Gordon could outscore Marshall anyway.
What do you think about the possibility of Grundy coming in next week?
Look, it's a small concern. I'm not as worried about it being one luxury season. He's going to make some cash this week. Worst case scenario, you trade him out next week, where we're just flicking premiums around anyway. 2, Grundy's been sent to the VFL to improve his forward craft. So he's not going to come back in and take 50% of the ruck share off Gawn, who's been killing it as a number 1 ruck as well. So if you're stuck with him for a week or 2, I don't think it's end of the world kind of stuff.
That's a very good point, yeah.
So I think in terms of that being a major red flag, I don't think it should stop you making the trade.
Yeah, because I've looked at the ruck trade and thinking, well, I'm just doing a rookie shuffle on the bench anyway. Could I just do the ruck shuffle and get that ruck?
Here's the only thing that I would say, because I've thought about this as well, right? So if I bring in Gawn this week and then Grundy comes in next week, I'm going to have to trade him straight back out. And I know we are in luxury trade season, but there goes my shot. It's gone now. Like it's because I'm not able to upgrade one of my other positions, like a Took, or a lot of us have still got a Darcy Cameron, Jack McRae, a Will Day. So if you trade into Gawn and then you got to get off him next week, like you're done.
You think he Grundy comes in and just kills his scoring? Like he'll be going up against North Melbourne next week.
Exactly right. So that's what worries me. So firstly, Cherry and Goldstein. So a dual ruck setup, and the fact
they've been
that they're
giving
playing
up heaps of points to rucks, and wouldn't that be the perfect game for Grundy to just be practicing as like a permanent forward? Like if he's going to have a game to sort of get some time as a forward under his belt.
I guess I'm thinking that I think they're going to want to run Gawn in the finals, and I think they will use next week as a way to kind of rest him up and maybe give him a bit of extra chop out. Because this is really their kind of last game where they can kind of have a bit of a. Where have Melbourne got for the rest of the year? Hang on, maybe I'm being a bit too assumptive here. Hang on, let's have a look. So they got Richmond, North. Oh, okay, they got North as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they're taking an L against Richmond this week, so they're going to have to put some W's on the board. So.
Yeah, I'm just worried about it now. I think it hasn't played out the way that it would have been the perfect play, and it just hasn't played out the way we.
There's definitely risks, but I just want to I personally would challenge the notion that Grundy comes in and Gawn's dead in the water, must trade next week, because I don't know how you look at those last couple of games and
it's a fair point.
I'd move Gawn out of the ruck, especially with the wording that Melbourne have said he's going to play forward in the VFL. So they obviously don't, for finals, they don't want Grundy taking the ruck time off Gawn. Yeah. So, but that's just my thoughts. Obviously, the risk is there.
Yeah. I'll go to the second part of James's question as well. To you, Tim. He just said, would you get Sheasel or Flanders from Ben Keys? Who would you pick out of the two?
If you're asking me, I think Sheasel. I tend to think that Sheasel's I think he's a little bit unique. I think he's gone back to that halfback role, even with Clarkson coming back in. That's who had him playing in that role. I do wonder whether North are still pretty, just set on having him be the rising star and kill it for the rest of the year. And Flanders, look, I'm just not convinced. Look, he looks freaking fantastic, right? So, there's a lot of merit to go towards him, but, I think he could also just be a 90, 95 kind of player. I don't know what's going to happen towards the end of the year with Gold Coast. Their new coach, and, I tend to think there could be a little bit of movement in that midfield.
Yeah. I'd go Sheasel as well. Were you the same, Mitch? Did you go Sheasel to Flanders, or? And Mitch, you're on mute, mate. Oh no, he's still on mute. Maybe he's busy. So that's right. We'll move on to that.
I did just get a message from Jeb, actually. Where'd it go? Xavier O'Neill is playing. Likely tag Sheasel. Fuck.
Actually, that is a good point, because he won't probably take LDU, not play midfield, but he'll probably play forward. He'll probably go to Sheasel. So actually, that might change him back to That might change a bit of Flanders, actually.
What about a Simpkin, maybe? Yeah, I don't know.
As an option? Simpkin?
Yeah, no, not as an option. He might go to Simpkin as a tag.
Nah, I wouldn't go to Simpkin. I don't think Simpkin provides too much worry for them, whereas Sheasel's been really, really good. So yeah, it's interesting. We've got another couple of questions here anyway. What have we got here? So flicking between both Twitter and that. So we'll go with Corey's question. Says LDU and Jackson or Flanders. So quickly, Tim, who'd you go out of? Would you go Jackson over Flanders?
No, I wouldn't.
No, okay.
I think I'm not that big on Jackson, actually. I think Freo are done. And I don't. I know that he's got that role with Darcy, but I kind of think that they're probably going to put the queue in the rack a little bit. And I do actually prefer a Flanders with that midfield role to a Jackson.
Well, Taser actually a friend of obviously ours that we met at the game last week in the live shows for the a couple of weeks ago, the Trails live shows. He was saying that he wouldn't be surprised if once Freo season's done, they bring in a Reedy to play, like get a bit of a go, see what he's about. So that is a bit of a concern. They bring a guy like him in, and Jackson plays a bit of dual setup. So I was thinking, after thinking about it, I probably would go Flans. He's probably got the ceiling.
He did have a bit of a down. Was it down with his possessions or tackles or something like that last week, which I think people are kind of have used to justify. But he didn't. He had that opportunity last week. Didn't really start.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think you're better off with the inside mid.
Yeah, so Corey's saying LDU and Flanders for Walsh and Ashcroft, looping Hobbs and Windhager.
Sorry, hang on. What was it? LDU.
So he's going and Flanders, and he's trading out Walsh and Ashcroft, and he messaged me earlier in the week. He said I've got to keep Hobbs, and I said, well, unfortunately you do because Walsh and Ashcroft are out. So I like it, Corey there. Jacob says bring in Dunks or Sicily. So we were saying before we'd probably go Dunkley there. And then would you go VC Doherty into Bont, or would you VC Bont into someone else on Sunday?
Yeah, I would.
I'd VC Bont. Would you even maybe a VC a Doherty instead and go into
sorry, hang on. Sorry, what did I just say? I would only VC Bont. Sorry, did I say?
Oh, okay, yeah. So you'd VC Bont into someone like a
I wouldn't want
to.
My point was being at Ballarat, you don't want to have your C on Bont.
Yeah. I would probably agree as well.
Like maybe if you're convinced about putting a VC on him, fine, go for it. But I wouldn't run the C on him.
Yeah, agreed. Rhett says Sicily or Doherty. What are you doing?
Look, I think.
You go.
No, you go first, mate.
I was just going to say I'm Doherty for me. I think the fact that he's got Collingwood this week, which is a pretty nice matchup of late for midfielders and defenders, and he's been playing midfield obviously lately. Obviously, Charon Cripps back in, but Walsh is out, so I think Doherty will still see some midfield time. But he's also then got St Kilda next week, so that's why I'd go Doherty personally. But it's a flip of the coin for me.
Look, I think the right decision is Doc, but I think if you're trying to gain rank or win a league matchup, like in an elimination final or something like that, and you're the underdog, I think go Sick Dog.
Yeah. It's a tough one. It's one of those ones that 50-50 call. So really, whoever you want to go. So what else have we got? Ben says. Thoughts on waiting a week for Dunkley? He was thinking of going Ben Keys to Stephen Coniglio and then going Hinge to Dunkley next week via DPP. Or would you just grab him this week? What are your thoughts?
Sorry, mate. I missed that. I was reading a message from Rids.
That's all right. That's all good. Ben said, thoughts on waiting a week for Dunkley and going Ben Keys to Coniglio and then going Hinge to Dunkley next week?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's definitely a play in terms of cash, right? Because Dunkley potentially still might drop in cash. So you could hold off. But, I mean, I do also wonder with, a lot of the value options that we've had over the past, 6 or 8 weeks, and I've talked about some of the mid prices and, underpriced premiums, but I probably forgot about Sheldricks and, your Windhagers and maybe even like a Dev Rob to a certain extent as well. I'm not sure that many coaches are strapped for cash. So, look, I know I'm not. Like, I mean, I got a Windy on the bench, right? He's $570,000 or something like that. So, plus I've got a Hewitt and I've got a Chesser and, Dev Rob goes for me this week as well. So, cash isn't, really too much of a concern for me, in which case I'm more, just go for the play you think is going to score the most or is the most unique. For me, that's obviously a Dunks. But if cash is a concern, then play the break-even game, and I'm not sure how it works out. It might be that Doc is actually the best option, Sick Dog might be the second best, and Dunks is actually the third when it comes to break-evens and stuff. That's only off the top of my head. You might have to double check that.
Yeah. I would be going Dunkley because Cogs has got the Bulldogs at Mars this week, so that's who knows what's going to happen. And he's got Sydney at Giants Stadium, and they tend to be lower scoring games. The Giants Swans games, and then he's got Port Adelaide Oval. So that's a pretty tough 3 weeks for Coniglio. So I'd go Dunkley, who's got a pretty favourable fixture. So, but we have got a few speakers back on. So we've got Mitch is back on after a little comment hiatus. You got the something.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. I think Elon Musk gave me a little mini shadow ban there or something because Twitter just went haywire on me. But I'm back.
Yeah, beautiful. And then we've got Doss.
Is Mitch speaking? I can't hear Mitch.
Can't you? Oh yeah, Mitch is speaking. Yeah, I can hear him clearly. I don't know.
All right, maybe come back. Maybe it's doing that thing again.
Yeah, all good. But Mitch is back, which is great. We also got one of the men behind the footy grid that I'll be getting involved in. A lot of people been getting around. Doss, mate. Doss has jumped on for a chat, mate. How are you?
G'day, yeah, co-creator, CEO, CTO, CFO. Just creative mind alongside an expert coder of footy grid. But no, it's good to be here. I actually just jumped on quickly to report live from Lockley's Oval for the Div 12 Resi's blockbuster game happening tonight. I can see some of the lads in sight at the moment. It is buzzing.
How much
here.
tape and Denka rub are you guys going through? That's what I want to know.
Oh, I can't believe the scenes going on here. They've already got a crowd. I think it's still an hour till the game starts, just about, and it's like a Sandful or a VFL game down here, even more buzz than that. And I reckon the Div 12 Resis have come out for the earliest warm-up of all time. They're already out here having a kick in the
ping some
hammies. The adrenaline must be pumping out here. So
I'll be heading down, mate. So I'll see you and the boys shortly. So looking forward to watching the game. So
beautiful, yeah. It's already pumping, mate. So look forward to seeing you soon. And of course, as always, I'm going to get back to it. But footygrid.com.
Footygrid.com.
Get involved, people. It's good fun. So cheers, Doss, mate, and catch you soon, mate.
Thanks, boys. I'll see you soon, Bales. Catch ya.
Beautiful. I've also got Rids has jumped on for a chat. Rids, how are you, mate?
Hey, how you going, mate?
Yeah, good, not bad, mate. How are you? How's the week of fantasy going preparing for round 20?
Oh, look, for me, it's not a problem because I don't really care this year. So it's not a problem for me. But for the other people that I'm trying to help out a little bit, it means a bit. So we'll see how we go, yeah?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it's a bit of a tough week that one for a lot of decision making. So, but yeah, beautiful. No, good to have everyone on, and we'll keep going through these questions.
Hey, before we do, Bales,
yeah,
Ridge, you let the cat out of the bag today on the pod about some changes that are happening to the coaches panel next year, mate. Do you want to kind of let people know now?
Yeah, well, MJ's actually listening right now, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, there he is. Yep, he's popped up there.
So, MJ, why don't you jump on? Because I'm only going to murder this, okay? So I'm going to butcher it. Whatever the go is, and you would have heard me murder and butcher the stats of Matty Mottram's last 30 months or whatever else. Like,
I think we got the point, though. We got the point, though.
Here he is.
Yep. I just wanted to force MJ to let the cat out of the bag last night because MJ likes to do this run sheet where it's all structured and do this and do that. So I like to throw a few spatters in that works.
Oh, beautiful. The man's jumped on. MJ, how are you, mate?
Good. Seriously, the podcast is like just dealing with another child. I got 3 of my own, a couple of them. So I've got all the grand plans I like in my life, and then Rids says the run sheet and goes, yeah, no interested in that, MJ. I'll just do what I like. Thank you very much. And yeah, force the hand. We were going to let everyone know in a month's time. And he's like, no, let them know now.
It's just, yeah, why not? So walk us through it, mate. What's happening?
Yeah, so what we've always been about at the coaches panel is talking about all versions of fantasy footy. So Dream Team, AFL Fantasy, Supercoach, and then the draft leagues. And so that's not going away. But what we'll do mid-year, so once the season starts, is we'll do 2 strategy roundtables. One purely focused on the limited trades, especially heavily focused on Supercoach, and then an entirely different one for AFL Fantasy. For people that have played multi-formats, they're just totally different beasts. And the trades and the processing and the things you're trying to do week in, week out, we just found it increasingly hard to be able to give the best level of input to the fantasy community as we can. So, yeah, as of next year, the strategy roundtables will double up. We'll still do the round reviews for our Patreons and Spotify subscribers and a bunch of other stuff that Rids also decided to throw.
And don't forget the YouTube videos so you can get on and watch MJ's great hair.
Gosh.
Like, I'm telling you, it is amazing.
That's because I have it and you don't. That's the only difference.
Well, I'm nearly 100, so of course I don't have it, and I'm grumpy.
That is
But
Well, actually, how old are you, Reds? You're talking about how old you are. I think I'm older than you.
I think I'm 47 now, but
Oh, okay,
I'm
you're a
losing
couple years older
count.
than me. How old's Stato? Any idea how old Stato is?
He wouldn't be my age yet, so
Yeah.
I
So it
remember
does
him
make
from
me one of the
about.
oldest as well.
Yeah, well, I remember Stato probably going back 10, 12 years ago. Like, he was a super coach player back then. So he won't remember me because I don't even know if I had my alias back then. So,
Yeah.
but so the real the thing why I wanted to force MJ in making this announcement was because you guys would know, yeah, we get so team biased when we're given a generic
Yeah.
answer for these questions, and we're so focused. How many teams do you have to have if you're playing Supercoach, Dream Team, Keeper Leagues, AF? And it's like, oh my God, which team do I go and bias my opinion today? Like, so it makes it even harder. So,
Yeah.
and we found out what we're doing is we're going, and we're doing this, you would have heard Selby saying it in his podcasts, like the old school, new school thought process.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've got that mixture as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's just
Yeah, I like
making
how
it too hard.
you're especially I like how you're kind of taking this year to, kind of learn off Matty Mottram as well. Before kind of, really having a crack at it as well, because it's going to give you, it's going to give you a fresh perspective. It's going to give you a different way of looking at things rather than coaches that, sometimes we've been playing for so long, we just get in habits and tend to make decisions, sometimes automatically without thinking about them too critically.
So I think the last time I played AF really, really seriously was 2013. And at the time, I think Pete Hookman won the whatever it was back then. But I was actually helping him out on the side. But I think MJ and we were chasing Pete all the way, Hook, for that, whatever the title was back then. I'm getting old. I can't remember these things. But yeah, so that's a long, long time ago now.
Yeah.
So I actually, like, with all these new strategies, with all these new tools, with groupthink, we didn't even have social media back then besides Facebook.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just the way of the world now.
And then, talking about us old boys and us old school thinkers, and the other thing that you guys brought to the table this year is your own Harry Sheasel, your own number one draft pick in Mini Monk. And
yeah, and can I tell you,
he's a bloody good brain when it comes to fantasy football, eh?
Mate, 2 years in a row, he has absolutely smashed it in all formats that he plays. So he thoroughly deserves to be skiing his ass off right now up on those mountains.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of pressure because, like, I do one and then I forget about the others, and just not enough time in the day.
Yeah, I only do one because otherwise I end up screwing things up.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should get into some of these questions, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we'll go rapid fire. So if you, MJ and Ridge, if you guys want to stick around and answer a couple of questions, we'll be off about another 5 minutes because Tim went off the varsity and I'll head down to Lockley's Oval to watch the Div 12 Resi. So let's get stuck into questions. So I'll go to Mitch this one because I know Tim doesn't like different combos and options. Sean says, Mitch, he says, does he go, he's got two options. So option one goes Chesser down to a rookie and then go Himmelberg up to Dunkley? Or would you be going Marshall to Gawn and Himmelberg to Dunkley? He's ranked 292, so going Marshall to Gawn could be a good pod move. So you're doing the rookie switch, or are you doing Marshall to Gawn?
This is a really tough one to answer. I think the Marshall to Gawn from where he's ranked has the highest potential to catapult him up the rankings. So I would answer this if this team has been sort of steadily making their way up the rankings already, and like they've been going in the right trajectory, maybe go the conservative and keep the Marshall. But if you've kind of stalled out and plateaued and you need to shake things up a bit, you can trade to Gawn, I reckon. But it's a tough call. But yeah, I think that's around that kind of rank where you might sort of want to do something like that.
Yeah. MJ, I'll go this one for you. Kobe says, is it time to trade Noah Anderson?
Yeah, it can be. The question is not, is it time to trade him out? Although his matchup's not great. The question is, who are you moving to? What's the secondary trade that's enabling that? Are you doing, as Mitch was just talking about, are you doing this little cash grab off the side and not really improving your side a heap with a double up of your upgrades, or are you doing a double move through there? So it's never as easy as should you move Noah Anderson off, because the matchup wise, yeah, Brisbane's pretty negligible for it, but he's got as good a ceiling as any midfielder in the game. I guess the question I would say is, do you need to create some separation? Do you need to create some ceiling? What are the things that you're looking to do? Off the back of that, I'd make that call. Personally, for me, I think Anderson probably could go relatively soon, but it all is about who you're moving him to and what the other movements you're doing are.
So, Bales, I just want to call out something here. This is why MJ asks the questions and doesn't answer the questions, because there was a lot of words for I'm going to sit on the fence and get splinters in my ass.
Trade Noah Anderson. There you go. How's that, Ritz?
Well, there you go. Well, let's just say, yeah, just get rid of Noah Anderson. You should have got rid of him 3 weeks ago, so get rid of him this week.
Well, what a normal pre-podcast.
I'll go to the next one. Jake, I'll go to you, Rids, for this one. He's going Day or Darcy Cameron to Dunkley. Who would you be trading first?
Could you do a 3-minute preamble on this one, please, too, Rids?
No, I'd just get rid of Darcy Cameron on that one. I think Day's got a nice matchup this week. I wouldn't be just jumping off Day right now.
Yeah, I'd get rid of Cameron too.
Yeah. Max has got this one, Tim. Pick one, Parrish, Neil, Libba, or Cornelio. Who are you bringing in this week?
Parrish.
Yep, I'm Parrish as well. I'd agree with that one there.
What are the matchups he's got in the next couple of weeks?
Exactly, that's it. Yeah, that's exactly it, Tim. No,
Yeah,
he's got like North Melbourne, he's got like West Coast
North,
or something,
back to
two
back.
in a row.
Sydney, West Coast, North, Giants, Collingwood. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
If you're not jumping on him this week,
unique. So, yeah.
you've got to get him next week, okay? Just do it.
yeah, agreed. What else we got here? We've got a couple more. Brendan reckons that Willem Drew will go to Laird or Dawson this week. Yeah, I think he'll go to Laird, unfortunately. They do that more often than not. Matt's got this one. Mitch, he said, would you go Steele and the extra cash to then get Dunkley next week, or would you just get Dunkley this week? Who are you picking?
That's actually a pretty tough one now with those comments, and I've revised the Ball Boys, Big Boys. So I've got Steele slightly ahead of Dunkley and the captains. So I guess the tiebreaker there is that, you know, you've got a bit extra cash. You might go down a bit next week. So go Steele this week, Dunkley next week. Because I think they'll be scoring pretty similar this weekend. So you might as well save the cash. But that's a coin toss, really.
Yeah, I'd probably go Steele as well, just because Dunkley's going to drop in price. As you said, there's those comments, and Steele's got a pretty good matchup, so I'd be going Steele as well. So, but we will cut it short there. It is 6:30 where I am, so yeah. So there we go. But appreciate everyone that jumped on. So Mitch, thanks for jumping on, mate. Thanks MJ and Rids as well for jumping on. Mitch, where can the people find you on the socials, and where can they find the podcast?
Just at Ball Boys.
In seconds.
Yeah.
In seconds.
Okay, hold on. I'll be lifting the trophy up.
I'm staring.
No, you can find me at Ball Boys Fantasy. And yeah, just over on YouTube. If anyone's keen also to, you know, start exploring some fantasy basketball, or if you are also a fantasy basketball player as well, I'll be kicking up the basketball content as of next week as well. So stay tuned for a bit of that if anyone's keen. So, but otherwise, fantasy footy also at Ball Boys AFL Fantasy.
Yep, perfect. No, definitely get involved in the basketball with that starting in a few months' time. MJ, mate, where can the people find you and the podcast and also the Patreon?
Yeah, so at Coaches Panel, you can check that out across wherever your social media is. You can find all the Coaches Panel stuff. Wherever you get good podcasts and the crap ones as well, you can also find our podcast there. And that has all the details for our Patreon, our website, everything. And you can follow all of the boys off the back of that. Rids, Louis, Matt, Mini Monk, everybody's in there. You can go and check it out.
Perfect. Now, thanks, MJ, for jumping on as well. And Ridge, where can the people find you on Twitter, mate?
Somewhere, I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea what my handle is. So
it's like
I can tell you where
that on technology, isn't it?
At RidCP.
Well, there you go. And I can tell you where you won't find me, on a mountain skiing in the middle of winter. That's crazy, man.
Well, I'm sure many bugs haven't, Tom, but it would be bloody cold up there, that's for sure. And Tim, mate, where can the people find you?
Yeah, Tim Guest AU, and just just thanks for all the boys jumping on. I mean, I got to say, like, one of the best things about this year for me, even though I'm having probably one of the best years in terms of my coaching, has actually just been, chatting with all the coaches and getting them on, and having a laugh, and getting their insight, and it's just been really great. So, boys, thanks for jumping on this week, and everyone else out there listening who's been on before. We just really appreciate all the guests.
Beautiful. I echo those same sentiments as well. And you can find me at BailsDT on Twitter and trulybailshd on YouTube. We will be back on Sunday night for the usual round review with a couple of special guests, as always, to chat hopefully through a good round for everyone. So beautiful. Thanks for jumping on, everyone. And we'll catch everyone at the usual time Sunday night. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
On your boys.
Go Tigers.
See ya. Come on.